And estoy grabando. Bienvenidos al Stratosphere Lounge. Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle, here with my brand new awesome t-shirt, which is available for sale. Thank you very much. It's good to be here. Sabo did this design. I don't know if you know who Sabo is. Sabo is the guy who's the only street artist, really, who's on our side. And he's done these incredible things of Hillary and the Flying Monkeys, and he's making a few waves here in Los Angeles because apparently he did a graphic of her with, not too many clothes on. And, so there's all of that. Anyway, hey, Dave Wellman, how'd your shop vinyl go? It's going to be one of those nights, I got a feeling, just going to be one of those kind of carefree nights where we're just going to be goofing off a little bit and having fun. I don't have a whole lot of time tonight on account of how I have to post some more right angles, and I have to get a newsletter out and all the rest of all that stuff. But it was an enormous relief to get that firewall out, I have to tell you. That's been something I've been working on for a long time, and heard a lot of, well, not a lot, but we've seen a fair amount of feedback from people saying, hey, can you do more firewalls, a little fewer right angles? And the answer is yes. We did the right angles obviously because we didn't want to give up the show. We had so much fun on Trifecta. But main reason I wanted to do it was Trifecta was pretty much daily content, and I only had to, didn't even have to write but one of them. And we get 4. So now we get 5, and I have to write one of them. So it's good, but it's been killing me because I've been doing all the editing and all the post-production myself. What levels seem low? Do they seem okay to you? They just look low to me. So it's been forever. We actually got an editor. He's getting better and better every week. This week I only spent about less than an hour on all 4 episodes. It used to take me 4 or 5 days, so we'll be seeing some more firewalls. Also, by the way, I don't suppose it's top secret. It'd be a fun thing to talk about. Thank you for the kind words about the firewall. I was very proud of that one, actually. Let me just talk about that for a second. Not, kind of behind the scenes. Not just proud of that one. And we're still working on the store, by the way, Mr. Pershing. I was not just proud by the last one. I was just shocked, and I'm always shocked. Well, not always, but often shocked at how big the lie is. It's almost impossible to really get a handle on it, on how brazen it is. If it had turned out that 38% of black homicides were caused by policemen, or 24% or something, that still wouldn't be 50%. And you still couldn't really make the case that it's a massacre. Those are big numbers, though. But when you have 4% of black males killed by policemen, and the other 96%, pretty much percent or two maybe going to other people, other black males, then Black Lives Matter is a lie, and that's all there is to it. And they know it's a lie. If I go to you and I say, we got this terrible, 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 terrible problem, and the terrible, 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 terrible problem affects 4% of my population, and another problem that affects 96% of my population I don't talk about because it's not a problem, then you got a real problem. You know what I'm saying? It's just shocking. The numbers are always just astonishing how bald-faced these things are. There's huge difference between what they claim and what's actually real. I'm going to raise the volume level just a bit. So I see these statistics. I knew I had to do something on BLM, and I asked around and said, who's really good at this? And Heather McDonald's name came up in several places, so I read a bunch of her stuff, and it's, what do you say? I mean, it's just right in front of your eyes. Although a lot of things are right in front of our eyes, I suppose some of it is, selecting which statistics, not cherry picking them, because I could have done a 30-minute firewall and just brought in more and more and more evidence, and you have to decide actually what to throw away and what not to use. By the way, that's a sign of writing or editing maturity. I'm sure it's true in just about every other art as well. It's not a question of knowing which bad stuff to throw out. It's when you know what good stuff to throw out. That's when you know you're onto something. I think a product of editing a movie or TV show or a video or whatever is the ability to take all of the junk out after you write it and then start cutting the stuff that's really good because it's not helping. And I, needless to say, I have a bit of a problem with being a little wordy, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. So anyway, yeah, I saw these statistics, and you know what? The last time I had this experience was on Number One with a Bullet, where I was looking at the murder rates. I thought, okay, maybe what we'll do, is, I mean, the U.S. has got the number one gun ownership for sure. So our murder rate is probably what, I don't know, 8th, 10th, it's 111th. And then when you find out what the murder rate in Plano, Texas is, you find out it's lower than it is in Switzerland or New Zealand, then you realize, oh man, it's just sitting there right in front of your face. And we just decided, as a society, well, not as a society, as the overlords of our society have decided that this is not worth paying attention to. So anyway, something else I wanted to say too. This may seem obvious, but it's not. At least it's not to people on the left. If it turned out somebody, debunked my video on the Facebook page, and I wrote him a 7-page answer or something like that because I got that kind of time. But he was saying that this is a scientific rebuttal, and he posted a lot of links, and I just showed you're not rebutting anything. You're changing the word. You're changing the goalposts. You're changing the. You won't address the fundamental issue. Anyway, it was a big old long thing. But the thing that I say there, and I often say before, is it's just so important. If it had turned out that the statistics revealed that police officers were in fact gunning down young black males, if it turned out that black males committed 13% of the homicides and matched their percentage of their population completely, and if police were gunning down twice as many, then that would be an outrage, and that's what the video would have been about. It would have been about that. So this idea, is you get this quite frequently from these deep thinkers on the left. They basically say, you're just trying to make a point for your political position. You actually have that backwards there, Einstein. I'm not trying to find evidence for my political position. My political position is where the evidence is. See the difference? See? Subtle but important. So, yeah, that's just important to know. And if it turned out that Trayvon Martin had in fact been an 8-year-old kid who was just assassinated on the way to work, then I would have had something different to say about that too. So it's, you just have to do it. And this is as good a time as any, I guess, to throw in my little detergent commercial for the hour. This one took a bit of guts, actually, because when you're talking about race, especially when you're talking about the essence of these numbers, it really is the third rail of politics. I really don't think there's anything more controversial or more easy for people to just snap at you for, and just I watched it happen to Andrew Breitbart, who was the least racist person I know. I watched them just crucify him, and I watched a lot of people on the right run away from Andrew Breitbart. That was not our proudest moment, but. When you see those kind of numbers and you read them and then you put them in a script and then you watch the script even before you put the graphics in, you just go, that just can't be right. But it is right. And so, and in fact, it's worse in a lot of ways. This is one of the things that I was accused of today on this comment section in Facebook was I was accused of cherry picking New York City. And I did cherry pick New York City. New York City isn't even in the top 30 cities for murder rate anymore. It used to be number 1, and then a Republican came into town, and now it's not in the top 30. It may not be in the top 50. So yes, I did cherry pick New York, because if I picked a neighborhood like Brownsville or Newark, it wouldn't be 25 times the total number of shootings, blacks versus white. It'd be 60 times or 80 times or whatever the case may be. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is this. I don't do this video to take heat off of an actual problem. I'm not lying to cover things up for a political position. If it turned out that the numbers had said something different, then I would have been on the other side of this issue. It's like I said many times, and it's a great thing to say because it's the truth. If healthcare were free, I'd be a progressive on healthcare. What kind of jerk would you have to be if healthcare was free and you didn't want to give it to anybody? But it's not free, and this is how you, this is how I go through life. It's like, yeah, that'd be nice if it were true, or that'd be outrageous if it were true. But unfortunately, it's not. So now let's get down to what's actually true. And the final thing I'll say about this firewall is, the it's them. It's the people that defend the system. It's the people that defend the lie of Black Lives Matter that condemn black people to this life forever. And I care about them a lot more than people like the social justice warrior that swooped in on me today. I care about them a lot more. And the reason I know I care more about black people than he does, because I want to get to the bottom of what the problem is so we can solve the problem. I want to get to the bottom of what's causing this massacre in America's cities, and I want to solve that problem. And to the degree that Black Lives Matter exists, they exist for one reason only, and that is to take the spotlight off of what's actually causing the problems and put it onto something that's not. So that's where we are, it's just, it's just hard. Anyway, that's about that. So I was very proud of that one. I remember what I was going to say. Excuse me one second. What I was going to say is that doing that kind of thing requires a certain amount of courage and resources. So things like that firewall, we talk about the resources, but for just a second, I just want to talk about the courage. And I don't mean to blow my own horn here, but there's not a lot of people having that kind of conversation that directly. And one of the reasons I'm able to do that is because I work for you. I work for the American people. I don't have a single point employer anymore. I don't have somebody who can back me off of this or tell me that, I don't know if this is wise or, no, I work for thousands and thousands of people, American people. I work for the members here. They're my boss, and they're not just my boss. They're my income, and I figure what they're buying from me is the truth. And as long as I keep telling the truth, then, hopefully I'll stay in business. So if you enjoyed the firewall, if you liked it, and if you want to see them keep coming, I know I say this all the time, but it's an ad because it has to be an ad. If you like the stuff and you've been watching it for years and you can help us, we really need your help. We need your help for advertising. We need your help to do more of these things. And there are no commercials in all of this. We've done, I can't even estimate the number of total hours I've done on it's got to be tens of thousands of hours. I would think at least. And no commercials in any of it other than this occasional ask for people who can help us to do it. No one else is doing this, and I don't think anyone else is doing it this well either. So if you can become a member, I'd love to have you go to billwhittle.com and click on that membership button, because we had a great transition when PJTV closed, but it's fallen off quite a bit, and we need to get that back up because we have some big plans. One other thing I thought I'd talk to you about is in the big plans department. That's the end of the commercial until the end of the show, by the way. One thing that we're going to be doing is I've been talking with Charlie Kirk about this for quite a while. If you're one of those people who don't know Charlie Kirk is, I want to say he's 21, 22. He's in charge of Turning Point USA. He's the most valuable player on the board, I think, right now. He's the most valuable player. He is too busy to go to college because he's so busy changing colleges. Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA have gotten themselves on just about every campus in America, and they are changing minds directly. And they've got kids walking around with signs that say "Big Government Sucks," because it does. And he's just a warrior. And he's taken this thing from an idea into an industry, and God knows he deserves it. He works very hard. I think we'll all be working for Charlie Kirk one day. But the reason I bring Charlie Kirk up is we had an agreement to do some videos for him, and they're a little late because I'm behind on the firewalls. And between now and the election, I'm going to try to do a firewall every week. So I'm going to be doing a series of videos for Turning Point USA aimed at younger people, and I was trying to think, what is it I want to say here? What is it that we need to say to young people? Why are young people just so easy to turn. Why are they being turned into socialists? Why do they buy this stuff? Well, obviously they buy it because there's a lot about the truth that they don't know. So what is it that they don't know? I don't think most college kids have a problem with freedom, They have a problem with freedom of speech, but you can talk them out of that. They're not socialists because they hate freedom. They have all the freedom in the world. There's never been anybody so free as these people. They're just the freest people that ever lived. And they've been free for so long, and I mean generations, that, they don't know what lack of liberty is. So what is it? What is it about young people that makes them go so fast to the left and so easily to the left? And I came to realize they do not understand economics. They don't understand economics. They're given an emotional argument that says if you believe this, then you're a good person, and if you believe that, then you're a bad person. They don't challenge any of this. They go right in lockstep with it. But if you understood the economics, then all of a sudden you'd be a conservative. So I'm going to do at least 5. It's always fun for me to talk about these things because it helps me get them a little bit organized. The first thing I'm going to talk about, and they're going to be considerably shorter than firewalls. And, I'm going to wear a hoodie and have my pants down around my knees so I can, get down with the kids with that, laying down that fat beat. But the first one's going to be called money. People think they know what money is. They know what the object is, but they don't know what money is. Nobody out there is talking about what is money. What is it? Well, it's a token of the work that you've done. It's a token of your economic value. It's not a token of your personal value. It's a token of your economic value. And it's a way to store up your labor. You can work if you're a teenager mowing lawns and you're using a mechanical lawnmower that was in your garage and you want to buy a gas-powered lawnmower, well, then you can mow lawns for however many hours and save up $20 an hour, whatever the rate is, and buy a mechanical lawnmower. So your economic worth is not your personal worth, but your economic worth is something. And basically, the thing I think most people need to understand about money when we start talking about young people, I'm not going to do a whole show on this, I might do it next week though, is this thought that just occurred to me. I'd heard it as an insult before, I can't remember where, but it's so unbelievably profound, I think. It's a very simple thought, and here it is. Money doesn't care who owns it. Money doesn't care who owns it. Money doesn't know who owns it, and money doesn't care. Money goes where demand is. Money is colorblind. Money is gender blind. Money is age blind. Money doesn't see religion. Money doesn't see anything. Money goes where demand is. And if LeBron James is the best basketball player in the world, and he gets $30 million a year, money's not saying, well, we'd pay a white guy $30 million a year, but because he's black, he's going to have to settle for $500,000. Money doesn't work that way. Money is water that flows where it needs to go. It flows downhill. And he's a deep well of talent, and a lot of money flows down there. Same with Beyonce, same with everybody else. And people have no problem. If you ask young people, well, do you think LeBron James should be paid, minimum wage or $20 an hour or $50? No, they don't have any problem with that at all. The big one is getting people to understand that money doesn't have any prejudices. It goes where demand is. And if you make something that has demand, then the money will go there. These kids are taught that money is just delivered by the wealth fairy, that the wealth fairy flies over the land at night and determines which people are going to be rich and which ones are going to be poor for the rest of their lives, and taps those rich ones on the shoulder with a little gold star. And the next thing you know, they got all this money. They think that economics is a zero-sum game. They believe that if you've got a lot of money, that means you took it from somebody else. Something else we're going to have to get through. But first of all, just going to talk about what money is, because everything, I'd like these things to be a chain of reasoning. So the second one will be called socialism, and it's basically going to say, if you want everybody, there's a difference between equality of opportunity and equality of result. If you want everybody to end up the same, then you have to slow down everybody to the speed of the slowest runner, and that's why these economies are so terrible. Capitalism basically is so far superior to socialism because capitalism ties your reward directly to your work. And if you want more reward, you can work more than you would have to otherwise in order to get the additional reward. It's that extra work that you do that makes wealth out of thin air. It's what makes people rich. It's the extra work that you do beyond the work you need to do. And I go back and I'll do my spears and baskets thing. That was number 3. Number 4 is going to be corporations. Because I think in corporations we have to talk about wealth creation. These kids think corporations are evil. It's like, all right, let's take an evil corporation. Let's take a really evil corporation. Let's take, I don't know. How about Uber? Uber was just valued at 41 billion, 60 billion, some number like that. $60 billion, something like that. So what countries did Uber invade in order to steal the money that they need to get the $60 billion? How did Uber steal $60 billion worth of value from other people? How did Uber go into, into soup kitchens and welfare lines, and how did Uber take their money in order to have $60 billion? Because that's what you believe, right? You believe that corporations just steal things. So it's kind of silly, really, when you get right down to it. Uber's worth $60,000 million because whoever came up with Uber had a very good idea. He had an idea for something that was a need that we didn't even know we needed. It's kind of like the smartphone. We didn't know we needed them until we had them, and once we had them, we can't imagine life without them. Same with Uber. These kids today, they love Uber. I love Uber, and if you use Uber as an example of some guy sat down, he wrote some code, and he sold the idea, and he's got Uber's a was it a half-inch by half-inch square? That's what Uber is, and he created $60 billion of wealth out of air. How do you say that? Well, you say it like this. The drivers were there. The cars were there. The passengers were there. We didn't have to use up more. We didn't have to go and rape Mother Nature to make more cars for Uber, and we didn't have to rape Mother Nature to make more passengers, more humans, or more drivers. They were all there. It was all just sitting there. Uber put it together in such a way that they added so much value to the world that they're worth $60,000 million, and they'll be worth a lot more than that because they just keep growing. I think if you say that, you can probably get through to them. And then we'll talk about colonialism and all the rest of that nonsense. But in any event, I'm excited about doing those. Okay, let's get rolling on this baby. I don't have a super long time tonight, I'm afraid. Like I said, I've got to get some newsletters out and that sort of thing. But I do feel so much better when that firewall is done. All right, here we go. This is the UR edition of the Stratosphere Lounge, number 128. And the questions all have to start with UR. The first one is an actual genuine pleasure, so let's start with this one. My printer's out of ink, so the blue papers came out very light, so excuse me for a second. Our friend Mike J. Amadin, sorry Mike if I got that wrong. You are a great man, and I wanted to say thank you again. That's very kind of you. For the shout out to my wife when we found out that she was pregnant. You asked for pictures when he was born. Maximilian Rin Amadin was born on 30th of August 2016 at 01:24 hours. Would you please take a moment to welcome his mom home and your newest fan to the Stratosphere Lounge? I'm sure both would be thrilled. And here is the pic you asked about on the other broadcast. So first things first, and through the magic of best produced show on the internet. First of all, young lady, you look gorgeous, and your child is beautiful, and welcome home, and we're certainly happy you're back, and we're certainly happy that everything went well. Didn't have any doubts about it, but we're certainly very happy that it did. And as far as young Maximilian is concerned, he is quite a striking young man already. The idea that some of these shows or some of these words are going to last longer than I do is it's a very strange idea, but I suppose it's theoretically possible. In any event, young man, you're starting off with a very good mom, and you're starting off with a very good dad, and you're starting off with people that are trying to make this world, at the very least, as good as the world that we all walked into. That's the very, very least that we're trying to do. So you, Maximilian, are the star of Stratosphere Lounge episode number 128, which was recorded on August 31st, way back in 2016. That's how old this is. We recorded this way back in 2016, and Congratulations, kid. I think good things are in store for you. I genuinely do. You know, people talk about the world's collapsing. I talk about it all the time. I talk about civilizational collapse all the time. I talk about it because we have to do something about it. But I have such faith in the American people, fundamental goodness and hard work and sweetness of the American people. We're in for some rough times. Don't get me wrong, but we're going to need everybody we've got, and he seems like a lovely chap. So thank you, Mike, for the kind words. Max, welcome. Mrs. Amadon, welcome home. Well done for everybody. And these are the kind of things that just make my entire day, week, and month. So good to have you with us, and we look forward to you going out there and working hard and getting yourself a minimum wage job and working 40 or 50 hours a week, slaving 2 or 3 jobs, 4 jobs, 5 jobs, whatever it takes just to keep those membership dollars coming. Young Maximilian, that's all we really care about around here, actually. Really. Congratulations. So that's lovely. All right, our pal Cheryl Toomey is back, and she says, okay, you are given a chance to change the outcome of one event in history. What event would it be? And you're also given a chance to change one event in your personal past. What would it be? That's a super question. I think about the first one a lot more than I think about the second one. And sometimes the answer is just really surprising. I think if I could change one thing, sometimes I think I would change the passage of the 17th Amendment. I would do that. I would, or I would, I don't know. See, when you start thinking about getting in there with individuals, you run into one of the great debates really about history in general. It's a great man theory. So you would think, oh, I'd go back and kill Hitler. Well, first of all, if that would do it, and I could go back and kill somebody, I wouldn't kill Hitler. I would kill Lenin, because Lenin led to Stalin, and it was far worse. It went on for 50 years instead of 15 or 20. But the problem is that if you go back and undo Lenin, or you kill Lenin before he grows up, or Marx or Stalin or all the rest, the question is, would society produce another one? And I suspect they probably would. Guys like Hitler and Stalin and all these villains are like little pachinko balls that fell into a slot that was waiting for them. And I don't know that if you take that particular ball out of the mix, whether some other ball wouldn't get in there and be... We can just use statistics, right? We can just use the laws of probability and bell curves and imagine that while there are people that could have filled the slot that Hitler took, some of them could have been a much better person than Hitler. We have to assume that some of them could have been much worse either. Unless the slot was self-selecting for what we would call evil, that's a possibility too. So if I had to do anything, I think I would probably go back, and if I could do one thing, certainly if I could do one thing today legally, do one thing, not time traveling, it would be to repeal the 17th Amendment, because 17th Amendment took the power away from the states. States losing power concentrated it in the federal government. Federal control of power is what led to one-party rule in this country, and one-party rule in the news media in New York, and one-party rule in the dream machine out here in Los Angeles. So it seems like an odd thing to almost like to waste that wish on. But I don't. As I said, I think the big things are bigger than individuals. I like to think that's true. Although, you read the history of the Soviet Union, it's very hard to imagine. Who could have done to those people what Lenin did. The Kerensky government, the revolution in 1917, the Russian Revolution was actually a two-part revolution. And in February, there was a revolution against the Tsar, and a provisional government headed by Kerensky took over. And it was trying very hard to be a democracy. I mean, they had a parliament, and they were talking about elections, and they were talking about all this stuff. They were going to try and honor their obligations in World War I. And it was just this little tiny flowering of an actual future for Russia that probably would have made it very similar to, it would have put it on the track to where Europe is instead of on the murderous track that it went today. So, but Lenin basically came back to Russia after the Kerensky government was in power. Lenin wasn't there for the first revolution. Trotsky was, but Lenin wasn't. Lenin was somewhere in Germany, I guess. And he was chased out and sent to Finland, I think. Whatever the case may be, he wasn't there. And he came back, and he basically launched a second revolution against the revolutionaries. The Tsar is gone. The Russian Revolution, people are free. For about 8 months, they were actually free. They were genuinely free. They had a tremendous constitution. They were working all this stuff out. And Lenin says, we're not going to cooperate with this government. The revolution's going to be a Bolshevik revolution. And he simply didn't give up. So the Bolsheviks overthrew the revolutionary government of Kerensky, which was on its way to doing all of the liberal reforms that Tsar Alexander II put in place and was killed for. They were on their way. And Lenin came in pretty much single-handedly and stole it. And Trotsky, who ought to know, was there, and he said the revolution never could have happened without Lenin. So if I could prevent one thing in history, I suppose that would be it. I would probably try to save as many lives as I could, and not just deaths. I mean, just what communism and Bolshevism really did to not just the Russian nation, but what Bolshevism did to the Chinese people and what it did to the Eastern European people. And it's just incredible, the damage that was done by that theory. I wouldn't change the theory because there was an awful lot of genuinely awful conditions at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. So if Marx hadn't written that book, I think somebody else would have. But Lenin appears to have been the fulcrum, and you can barely imagine an American Revolution without George Washington, but I don't think you can imagine a Russian Revolution without Lenin, and that was the worst thing that happened in history, in my opinion. You thought I was going to dodge the last one, didn't you? But I'm not. If I had to change one event in my personal past, what would it be? That's a really tough one. I'm honestly stumped about this because God knows there's a bunch of things that I wasn't happy about when they happened, but I don't regret a single thing. There's not like, oh, if I'd only done this. That doesn't... I'm tempted to say I wish I'd gotten smarter about all this conservatism stuff earlier, because if I had, I do feel like I started so late that, sitting here in this chair at 57 years old, I wish I had more time. But it's been pointed out to me by people that know me better than I do that the time I spent out there just wandering in the wilderness, and it was pretty sad, and pretty scary. I look back on my life, I thought, I lost half of my life or more. 20, 30 years are gone. I have no memory of my 20s or my 30s, and I didn't remember much of the 40s until I got to be about 45, 46. When I started doing eject, that's really when I kind of, got back into the world. Rhonda Renee knows my life story. She says I would have gotten fighter pilot eyeballs. I thought about that too. I've thought about that too, Rhonda. And needless to say, I went down with our friend Foghorn, who's watching right now, as Viper 6. And I got to hang out with actual fighter pilots and, and see the world that I really wanted. And once I met actual fighter pilots, once I sat with these guys and talked with them for hours, I realized, thank God I'm not a fighter pilot. These are the worst people I've ever met in my life. They're hardly the worst people I ever met in my life, however. I am part of that world. I like to be part of that world, as I've said 100 times on this show. Going down there and getting my squadron name, my call sign of Skid was the best day I ever had. So I can be a part of that world, and I love to hang out with them. There's our man Foghorn right there. But at the same time, if I'd only done that, I wouldn't have been able to do the things I do now. The things I do now are the result of starting off with a kind of a warrior attitude about things, for 12 hard, solid years of preparing myself for the Air Force Academy. I mean, I knew everything about U.S. weapons systems, and I mean all of them, not just Air Force ones. I knew everything about the Soviet inventory and physics, astronomy, all this stuff. So all this kind of hard science stuff I got. And then the vision thing went south, and so that was a catastrophe. It just shattered all the plans. I get into the theater department. I'm hanging out with all these, fawns and dancers and actors and actresses and very exciting and very glamorous and very interesting. And that's when I kind of realized I had some storytelling gifts. Gifts is too strong a word. Storytelling abilities, I guess. So if I had to pick one thing, I swear to God, you know how honest I've been during the show, nothing comes to mind. I can't think of a single thing where I just go, damn it, I wish I hadn't done that. I can think of a couple little things. Like, I wish I hadn't backed up my car with, 7-8 months ago and not seen the little wall that was not visible in my mirrors. It scratched up the back of my bumper. I regret that somewhat. But I really just honestly don't know what I would have done differently. I take it back. I do definitely take it back. If I could change one thing in my personal past, it's got nothing to do with me in terms of how I turned out. But if I had to do anything in my personal past, I would go back 25, 30 years, and I would take back our family's decision to get my mom out of a job that she didn't like. And we decided that she was working and had been working real hard, and that she'd taken care of all four of us, until like serious adulthood by herself. And then she was working at this job she didn't like very much, and the four of us got together and said, she's been working her tail off. Let's just get her out of there. Let's just pay for her rent, and let's pay for her bills. And she says she's always wanted to be, working in the theater, and she's always wanted to, travel and all that stuff. Let's just make that happen. So we did. And what happened was she went to the theater once, and my mom was very shy, and she liked it, but she just never went back to volunteer at the theater, and she didn't travel, and she didn't do any of those things. And what she ended up doing was just staying alone in this apartment that we were paying for, talking to her dog for 20 years, and that enormously accelerated her mental decline, her Alzheimer's, and the dementia. I have no doubt whatsoever that it was 20 years of isolation that was really responsible for getting this as bad as it was, as quick as it was, because her younger brother, my Uncle Ted, is 1 year younger than her. 1 year. They're identical. In fact, there's pictures of me and when I was 17 and Ted when he was 17. We look exactly the same. But Ted is a gas turbine engineer. He lectures on jet engines, and he to this day, he's going to be 85? Ted goes around and lectures to young 25, 30-year-old engineering students from China and Dubai and Australia and everywhere else. And he'll stand in front of the class. He's got 8,000 slides memorized. And he'll just start talking, and he'll say the JP75J engine has a maximum rated thrust of 67,000 pounds and consumes this many gallons of fuel at this many RPMs, and it's just all in his head. So since they're biologically identical, Ted is sharp as a tack because Ted's been using his brain actively and constantly interacting with people, and my mom had done just the opposite, and all of her social interactions went away, and that's I think that's what I would change. Merlin Magus says, Bill and Ted, I never thought about that before. Can you believe that? How could I have missed that? Yeah, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. We've had a few, actually. I spent 7 days in Thailand for his birthday, his 80th birthday back in 2012, and man, it was something. So that's the answer to that. Let's see. Marisol Balderas asks, thank you, it's the UR show. You are a conservative 18-year-old who is running for Justice of the Peace in Fort Bend County, Texas, against a complacent establishment candidate who has been unopposed for many years and for whom most people are likely to vote. How do you run your campaign? P.S. My brother is actually in this situation and could use a lot of advice. Okay, Marisol and brother, let's. This is a great question. So let's start at the bottom. It's not going to be terribly tough to answer, but it's a great question. Youth, in any particular job, youth and energy can either be attractive or they can be considered dangerous depending on the job and depending on how it's packaged, just like any other idea. A lot depends on the packaging. Now, 18 years old is extremely young. In fact, 18 years old has certainly got to be the legal minimum for this job. So the first thing you have to understand is, what is it that a justice of the peace does? What do they do? What is it that they do? And first thing I would do is I would get 5 or 6 bullet points, and I mean you should be able to get this out in 30 seconds. Why you are capable of doing, physically capable, forget about the moral argument, we'll get to that in a minute. Why are you capable of doing what the justice of the peace does? Because your first hurdle is going to be convincing people that you can do the job. That's number one. Can you do the job? Do you have the experience to do the job? So you have to make that case. I can do the job, and here's why. Get that quickly out of there. Then you have to talk about your opponent's age and lassitude and all of his inertia and his laziness, and you can't make it personal. You can't put him down, because you're going to be selling charms. What you're going to be doing, you're going to be trying to charm people into winning this office. And so you can't degrade the guy, and you can't throw mud at him, but you can say, listen, he's had this position forever, and I understand how this works. Believe me, I may be young, but I understand how it works. When you're in the same position forever and you feel like you just are not going to lose the job, you end up doing less and less and less. It's just human nature. Anybody would do that in their position. And now you get to really hit them, right? Now you get to bring in the right cross. Then you basically make the case, say, listen, I'm obviously young, but as you can see, I'm capable of doing the job. And by the fact that I've mentioned that the problem with him is simply that he's in a rut that he can't get out of because he doesn't have to. I hope that indicates some small measure of wisdom of how people work. And what I would like to do is I would like to apply my energy to making the Office of Justice of the Peace for this county, number one, up to what it's supposed to be, and number two, to do it as efficiently and as frugally as possible so we spend as little of your money as we possibly can. You throw a decent smile in there with that, and you're going to have a hard time losing that election. I've talked about this before. I keep saying that. I've talked about everything before. There's nothing more appealing to a person that owns a business than to have somebody young come in and be enthusiastic but disciplined. Enthusiastic, ready to work, but disciplined. Well, how much are you asking for? Sir, I'm not asking you to pay me anything. I'm happy to work for you for 2 weeks for no pay at all. And if it turns out that you're happy with the work we do, then we can have a conversation about the pay after that. But I'm more than happy to come in and reduce your risk. And I'd be happy to work for 2 weeks without pay to show you that I can do this, because I'm quite convinced that I can. Nobody turns that down. Nobody turns that down. Nobody. Most people, certainly if it were me, I would say, I might take you up on that. And then you work for 3 days, and you do a good job. It's like, there's no way I cannot pay you. Of course I'll start paying you. I'd pay you more than I would have paid you if you hadn't made the offer. So enthusiasm and youth are a tremendously attractive thing to people, especially older people, if it is wrapped in a beautiful little parcel, and that little parcel is called respect. You have to show respect. You have to show respect to the voters, you have to respect the voters, and you have to respect your opponent. Because if you don't show your opponent respect while you're making the case against him, you're going to look like a whippersnapper. You're going to look like some kid who's just, so you're going to look like Bill Clinton, I got to get political office. So I would say a couple things. First of all, can you do what the job requires? Make that a very fast. That should be 10 seconds to convince people that you've got the background to do that. Explain why you think that see, here's really what I'm getting at is, why are you running? Everything comes down to stories, okay? It's all a story. What is your story? Why are you doing this? very unusual for an 18-year-old to run for justice of the peace. So why are you doing it? And take it from there, and tell the truth about why you're doing it, because people can tell when you're lying. And for an 18-year-old to be running for justice of the peace in Texas is an unusual thing for an 18-year-old to be doing. So why are you doing it? I'm going to be later on downstream in a couple of weeks, probably once I get some of this stuff out of the way. I'm going to be putting together some help for some people I know from Russia. And they came here. They came here from Russia to open a ministry. They felt called to come here and help other Russians down here. And I'm gonna help these people because I know them and I think they're good people. But their story is, these are people who, I don't know if you knew this or not, but in Russia, they passed a law not too long ago that says you cannot say the name Jesus Christ, you cannot mention religion, you can't talk about religion, forget about, ministering to people. You simply can't talk religion unless you're in a church. You're not allowed to. It's against the law to talk about religion to anybody unless you're in a church. And they said, we can't live like that. So they came here. And their story is, this is what America is all about. These people are immigrants. They're here legally. They paid the price and they're standing in line. They've gotten everything correct with immigration. They're here on a purpose. They work like slaves. They sleep on mattresses and eat rice. They're here because of a passionate belief in forces of good. They're ready to work very, very hard and to not only obey the laws of this country. They're here because they love this country and they love the freedom that's here, and they're amazed at the quality of the American people and how friendly they are and how open they are. And that's the story of those people. Those people's story is the story of immigration done right today. It's the story that basically negates the idea that Republicans or conservatives are anti-immigrants. We're not anti-immigrants. We're anti-lawbreakers. We're anti-illegal immigrants. So I'm going to sell them as what they are. I'm not going to lie. I'm just going to tell their story. And their story is, these people are here and they need some help. And I met the couple, and the pastor is a terrific guy named Alexei Sasha, and his wife Slava. And they went out on their first date. He was the youth minister, and she thought he was cute. And they went out on a date. They're very close in age. And at the end of their first date, he said, if we're going to go on a second date, then we're probably going to get married. And if we get married, you need to know that I'm a minister and that life is not going to be easy, and that it's going to be filled with some real hardships and a lot of poverty for a while. But I feel like we're doing God's work, and I feel like I need to tell you that now because I really like you. How do you not buy into a story like that? I mean, that's exactly what it's about. So yeah, just get your story together, Marisol's brother. And again, make it. You can go with enthusiasm, but wrap it in respect, because youthful enthusiasm, hard work, and respect, you're done. There's nobody turns that down. Nobody. Janine Ron asks, you are given carte blanche by Hollywood bigwigs to remake anything. Anything. No questions asked, no limits on the purse strings. Which do you choose? Boy, that's a tough one. I'll just give you my knee-jerk reaction, because my knee-jerk reaction is as useless as anything else. I would remake Omega Man. I just would remake the Omega Man. I thought it was a terrific movie. And they did, of course. They've made it 3 times. I think Vincent Price was it Last Man on Earth, and then Omega Man, and then they did it with Will Smith a couple years ago. I forget it. It's the same story, basically. It's about a guy who, there's a biological plague, and he's a researcher, and while they're working on the plague, he works for the military, and he gives himself an injection, and he develops immunity to this plague. And the whole world burns down, and there's just a few survivors, and the survivors are trying. I Am Legend is what it was called. And basically he goes around fighting vampires all night, goes out there in the daytime and finds out where they are and kills them, comes back home to his fortress, and lives essentially completely alone and in a state of pretty much perpetual fear. Now, Charlton Heston version, the Charlton Heston version only was so much better than the other two because Charlton Heston doesn't really act. He does something that's like acting. It's very much like acting, but it's not acting. Charlton Heston has a spigot somewhere, and when they say action, Charlton Heston turns on the chuck. He turns on the Heston, and then something comes out that's just incredible, but it's not acting exactly. You know, it's he. Who else delivers a line that way and gets away with it? You know, get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape. And who else has a line like, I was the golden boy, class of '69, and you buy it? And who else can get off of a horse, go down on his knees, literally down on his knees, pound the sand? He's literally pounding sand. You bastards, you blew it up. You blew it up. God damn you. Anyway, if you haven't seen the Omega Man, this is Chuck doing that, and Chuck is he's just a hardcore badass, and he's driving around in a convertible, and he goes to see a movie, and he comes out of the movie. He has to go up and start the projector, obviously. Comes out of the movie and realizes it's getting dark. Goes back to his castle, fights off a couple of these zombies. Goes up to the top floor, turns on all the floodlights because these former humans just can't stand the light. And he just sits up there and plays chess with a bust of Julius Caesar upon which he hangs his Air Force colonel's cap. And he can hear them outside calling him, Neville, Neville. Then they start launching like a, you know, the survivors are so determined to avoid another biological war because it's a biological weapon that did it. It wasn't just a plague that came out. It was biological attack. They're determined that no more machines, so they start launching like fireballs at him with a catapult, which of course is a machine, but you get the idea. No guns, because otherwise it'd be too easy. And he just sits there, and he gets up. You know, this burning tumbleweed of hay comes through his window and starts to set the red velvet curtains on fire. And Chuck just immediately gets up. He's got a fire extinguisher right there. He's ready to go. Puts out the fire, grabs something, looks like a 30-06, walks out to the balcony, and just starts dropping these guys. And they all scream and run away. And you're all behind him, and you're all thinking, Chuck is awesome. And yeah, Anthony Zerbe, thank you, Wild Goose. He was amazing. Anthony Zerbe was the villain. He was terrific. And so you're with Chuck the whole way. I mean, how could you not be with Chuck Heston, for God's sakes? He's Western man. He's civilization. He's got guns, and he's trying to stay alive, and he's trying to find other people, and these things are trying to kill him. But the beautiful thing about that movie that they never really got to in the Omega Man, this is why I would remake it. I would remake it the way that I'd keep all of that action stuff and all of that cool stuff, and then I would do the one thing that they didn't do in the Omega Man, and they certainly didn't do in I Am Legend, but which was in fact the entire reason why that story was told. And I don't remember who wrote it, but you're going to tell me in a second. I'm sure it must have been Philip K. Dick or somebody like that. Some classic sci-fi story. The entire point of that movie was his realization at the end that he is the vampire. They're not the vampires. He's the vampire. He is the one who goes into their houses while they're sleeping and kills them. And that's all he's been doing for the last 7-8 years, is going into these are actual people, he realizes. They're not just animals, they're actual human beings. And he comes to realize that he is the monster because he has killed thousands of them. And he goes around in the daytime looking for nests of them and just gunning them down when they're absolutely helpless. And he's the villain. The hero's the villain. It's just great. It's just a great story. I have to tell you, I'm so embarrassed to admit this. I really am, because where did it go? Let me make sure I credit this right. Richard might have been Richard Matheson. Where'd it go? Hang on a second. I just want to get the names, you know. Well, I'm sorry. I don't want to spend the whole evening scrolling down. Somebody just not too long ago said he thought I was going to go for Buckaroo Banzai and swerved at the last minute, and I'm embarrassed to say that it never crossed my mind. But now that it has crossed my mind, I take it back. I'd remake Buckaroo Banzai without question. That'd be the movie I would remake without question. But Omega Man would be second. Maybe I'd make Buckaroo Banzai as Omega Man. Sarge 56 wants to know who would be my leading man, I guess, in the Omega Man remake. That's a good question. Richard Simmons is probably too expensive. Let me think. Oh, I almost had it. Maybe Daniel Day-Lewis. Maybe Daniel Day-Lewis. That guy can do anything. And he's a tough-looking guy. Yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis, I think. All right. Anyway, that was fun. Moving on. Timer. Now we're right. Matthew Lloyd has a pair or a brace of questions, if you will. You are wrecked on a desert island with nothing and no one except Hillary Clinton and a flock of seagulls. How do you and the seagulls survive until you can be rescued? Well, I think given your premise here, Matthew, we realize that we're starting off with a pretty significant amount of provisions, right? I mean, if there's nothing on the island but me and the seagulls and Hillary Clinton, you've got food for months, easily. So that takes some of the pressures off. I don't know what I would do. I agree with you in terms of the choice. I think probably what I would do, just to pass the time, if that's your question, I'd set up like a big sign or burn bonfire and spelled out things in the rocks the way that Bender did on Futurama. But I think if you're talking about how would I pass the time, if I had no one but Hillary Clinton and a flock of seagulls, then I think probably what I'd do is I'd try to remember and master and sing every single song by a flock of seagulls. I'd try to get their entire repertoire down and be able to sing all of the different parts and play all of the instruments. That's what I would do. I mean, if you're going to be with a flock of seagulls, you might as well be with a flock of seagulls. Same one. Matthew Lloyd asks, you are interested in sharing your thoughts. Well played. You are interested in sharing your thoughts on the difference between Huma Abedin ditching her husband, Carlos Danger Wiener, and Hillary sticking with and viciously defending Bubba and his rapes. What are my thoughts on why does Huma Abedin ditch Wiener, and why did Hillary Clinton stay with Bill? And the answer is because Bill is a political asset and Wiener is a political liability. Moving on. See how easy it is when you understand the motivation? Steve Darrow wants to know, you are in the world of the ones who walk away from Omelas. If you could rescue the poor girl who is chained to the wall, but it meant that you must take her place, would you? This assumes that all of the benefits that exist because of the girl's suffering would continue to exist because of your suffering. So it's a fantastic story. I've talked about it a couple times. It's just, I cannot recommend this highly enough. I cannot recommend this highly enough. I want to say it's Ursula K. Le Guin, virtually positive about that one. Go out and find, it's on the web, just Google it. It's called The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas, O-M-E-L-A-S. And for those of you who haven't read it, here's the story. Spoiler, obviously, so I guess no point in really reading it because I'm about to tell you what happens. However, it's certainly worth reading. So here's the point of this story. Ursula K. Le Guin talks about a town called Omelas. And Omelas is an amazing place. It's absolutely spotless, absolutely clean. It's absolutely safe. They don't have to worry about invasion. They don't have to worry about disease. They don't have to worry about anything. There's plenty of food, and the food is delicious. There's no murder. There's no rape. There's no stealing. There's no crime. Nobody dies of infant diseases. Nobody dies in childbirth. Life is perfect. It's nothing but silver trumpets and blue silk banners snapping in the wind, and it's philosophy, and it's poetry, and it's love, and the parents love each other, and they love their kids, and there's not the slightest bit of problems. People live long, happy lives, and none of this is fake. This is all 100% true. It's all 100% true. That's not like they're in a dream. It's not like they're imagining it. It's actually true. You have found actual paradise on earth where everybody is happy, healthy, and lives a long time. And then you find out in the story that the reason that Omelas is that way, the reason that they're so free of crime and disease and hatred and bigotry and death and all the rest of it, disfigurement, is because in the basement, in a dungeon, in one of the rooms in Omelas, is a little girl, 5 or 6 years old, and she's chained to the floor, and she sits in a corner covered in her own filth. and they sling slops of mush at her once a day and some water, and she suffers, and it's her suffering that buys all of the prosperity and happiness and wealth and love that goes on out in the world. She is the reason. It's her suffering that ensures that the thousands or hundreds of thousands of people live absolutely happy lives. And she's chained down there. She didn't do anything, but her suffering is the reason that Amelis does so well. And all the students, the parents bring their kids down to see this person and look at them, and sometimes they poke her with a stick, and sometimes they're grateful, but nevertheless, everybody knows that we're only able to live this idyllic, wonderful life because of this creature down here who's suffering. Now, this is why this is such a terrific story, because it's a test of your moral character. If you're a collectivist, you can say and be truthful. Let's not mince words here. This is the truth. The truth is, yes, of course we should continue this, because while it's a tragedy that these things are happening to this one person, if she were to die, if we were to release her, then there would be thousands of children who are starving, thousands of children who are in dungeons, thousands of children who are raped by relatives, thousands of women who are going to be murdered, thousands of children that never even get to be 6 years old because they die of horrible diseases. And all of this is going to happen if we take care of this, if we take this one person out of the equation. And so therefore, it is nothing but net good to have one person suffering rather than having everybody suffer equally or worse. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer that this is a good deal. But as Ursula K. Le Guin says in the story, however, there are some people, not many, just a few, who go down there and see this girl, and then they think about it, and they walk away from Amelis. They walk away from paradise. They walk away from the perfect city, the safe, rich, happy, genuinely happy, wonderful place. They walk away. And they walk away because they can't take it. Because they can't take the fact that their happiness is based on somebody else's misery. And this is why this story is so good, because it actually genuinely, I bet you anything, if you ask people on the left or the right about this question, the huge majority of people on the right would leave, and the huge majority of people on the left would stay. And the people who make the case for staying have a very, very, very good argument. They've got an absolutely, completely airtight, logical, moral argument, but I would, of course, leave. And the reason I would leave is because that girl, I am not going to allow somebody's misery to pay for my happiness. It's unjust. And the reason that people on the right would walk away is because they understand that their happiness or misery has to be based on their own decisions and their own actions. You cannot. It is not a zero-sum game. In other words, I can go out and be as happy as I want to, and my happiness is not going to take away somebody else's happiness. Somebody doesn't have to be miserable in order for me to be happy. Somebody doesn't have to be poor in order for me to be rich. The idea that all of this prosperity and wealth, a warm family and everybody would never leave me, because it wouldn't be mine. It wouldn't belong to me. It would belong to this girl who's down there right now while we're sitting up here having our warm Christmas and we're toasting with apple cider and we've got wonderful presents and everybody's happy and healthy. Down there somewhere in a dungeon is a girl who's lying there all by herself, sick and crying and terrified and lonely, and that's why we're all doing so well. This is a tremendous moral quandary, and it's very much like some of the moral quandaries that you'll get where if a train is going down a track and you could switch it so if it goes down continue down the same track, if you don't switch it, it'll kill 5 people, but if you do switch it onto a siding, then it'll only kill 1 person, and what do you do here? And these are the kind of things that are actually genuinely interesting. But I simply could not. My happiness has to be my happiness. It can't be somebody else's. It can't be somebody else paying for it, because then it's not right. My existence and happiness does not have to be dependent on somebody else's suffering. And if it turned out that I was born into a world where I realize that it was dependent on somebody else's suffering, then I would leave. But that's actually not the question. The question's actually a little bit more interesting than that. The question is, if you could rescue the poor girl who is chained to the wall, but it meant that you must take her place, would you? It said, and basically says, if I took her place, then the city would continue unabated. I would become the sacrificial lamb, and not her. Well, my immediate reaction was to say, no, I'm not going to suffer for these people up there in the same way I don't expect them to suffer for me. It's not. It's unearned. It's evil in the beginning, right? I mean, it's evil in the beginning. So if it's evil with her there, Steve, then it's got to be evil with somebody else there. Although certainly me making a decision changes the equation somewhat. It makes it voluntary. But I'm not going to put myself in that position because I have a right to a happy life too. Now, if you were asking me if you could save the girl, and there was a good chance of saving the girl and a poor chance of you getting out of this rescue attempt, that's a different story. Then I would do it. I really do believe I would do it. I would get her out of there and we'd leave together. But that's not what this says. This says, would you put yourself in her place? I don't think I would. Although I can sit here and say that, and I know for a certain fact that the minute I get down there, I would. The minute I saw her, I would do it. Yes, of course I would do it. I would certainly do it. Yeah, I would much rather just get her out and get both of us out, and I would trade places with her. But you know what? Here's the deal I would make. I would say this. I would say I'll trade places with this girl, and I will live in this dungeon in her place. But if I do that, you have to take away all of the benefits. What? You're going to do the suffering anyway. Why do you take away the benefits? Because the two can't be linked to each other. They can't be. They cannot be linked to each other. So I'll spend the rest of my life on this dungeon floor, not to make those people happy, but to get this girl out of there. I think that's really it. The reason I said at first I wouldn't do it is because I was looking at it from the perspective of I would not be a sacrificial victim for other people's happiness. However, confronted with a 6-year-old girl who's in there crying, I could take it more than she could, far better than she could. Yes, I'd get her out of there. But if it was within my power to stop the deal, then I would probably stop the deal. I would do anything I could to stop this arrangement. Okay, because it's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant story. And the first time I read it just gave me chills. And by the way, there was no doubt about it, I mean, I didn't have to think about this. The last line is, some people leave and they never come back. And it's like, yeah, of course I would leave. I'm curious to know if anybody reads that story and says, of course I would stay. I mean, clearly the story is it's a super well balanced story. It's why it's so effective. But it actually occurs to me, are there people that read this and say, oh, hell yes, I would stay? There must be. There must be millions of people who would read the story and say, yeah, hell yes, I would stay. It's really tough about the girl, but I mean, if the girl's not there, then there would be thousands and thousands and thousands of sick kids. They die early. But it was never entered my mind. Once Le Guin closes the gate on the story and basically says some people leave, essentially saying what she doesn't say because she's too good a writer to say it, but she's essentially saying, what would you do? And it's like, of course I'd leave. Of course I would leave. So that's a great question. Let's see, 2 to go. You are the message, as the saying goes, and in light of the burgeoning sector of personality-based journalism and political commentary, see Stefan Molyneux, Mike Cernovich, Dave Rubin, and others, what are you doing to bolster and improve your personal brand? That's a super good question. Do you know, well, obviously not enough. One of the things that we do when we keep asking about resources, and keep trying to increase the resources, is I'm trying to free myself up. We took on a second editor. Needless to say, he costs money. And because I was spending all week on getting the right angles done. And I think the right angles need to be there. It's daily content. I pretty much do a video a day, certainly 5 a week. It's definitely 5 a week. And and I'm behind on doing these time over targets and stuff, which I'll shoot tomorrow. So I probably do at least one a day, including weekends, and sometimes I do more than that. And that's good because that's the business, and I love what I'm doing, and I want to do more of it. So the first thing I would do is I would spend a lot more time on the marketing, but I can't do that because I'm so busy cranking product out the door. So in terms of the thing that interests me the most about this question, though, is, and this is partially an answer, it's a little deeper question than it looks, because you talk about personality-based journalism. I've never heard that term before, but it's clear that that's happening, and it's clear that's what I do, and Stefan does, and a bunch of other people you mentioned, Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh and all the rest. And the reason I think this is such an interesting question is because I'm not doing as much as I should to improve my reach, because it's only within the last 2 or 3 months that I realized what it is I do. I mean, let me rephrase that I realize what the product is. I know what I do. I know what my work is, and my work was the same when I was writing. This work has always been the same. I just can't stand injustice. I just hate it. And so I know what the work is, but I know what I do, but I didn't know what the work was. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Perfect example of what I'm talking about here. I'm coming from a television background, and I'm coming from a 20th century background. I'm coming from a background where I grew up watching, 3 TV stations: ABC, CBS, NBC, and those were captive audiences. You were there at 9 o'clock on Tuesday to see the show you wanted to see, and if you missed it, then you missed it. And so you were essentially chained to the seat. It's hard for young people to understand. We didn't have the internet, obviously, so there wasn't an endless supply of things to look at. And I find that every single day, I spend more and more time on YouTube and less time on anything else. I think people produce the best content. So it's a miracle, because you can get into the game for essentially nothing, and certainly not more than a couple $100 if you got some talent. So here's what I'm talking about. So I did for years and years at PJTV, and for years and years with Firewall, I would do an opening graphic. And I did the opening graphic because I thought it looked good. I thought it was great opening graphic, especially the Firewall opening graphic. Hi, everybody. This is the Firewall. Awesome. Great way to get into the show. It's absolutely fantastic. And I take a great deal of pride in the graphics treatments and the opening credits for Nexus Report and Time Over Target, the members-only content. I like the opening graphics for News Actually. I really dig doing it. It's really fun for me, and I like it. I like the look, and I like the sound of it. However, just a few months ago, I sat down with somebody who really knows what my product is. I don't know what it is. I thought I did, but turns out I didn't. And what we found was we were looking at graphs and charts and numbers, and we found out that the number of people that left the video, watched the video for less than 7 or 8 seconds, was something like 80% of the people left within 7 or 8 seconds. It just falls, and falls pretty quick, and then when it falls, it stabilizes pretty fast. So it's basically saying, nope, don't have time for this. And then the people that do stay either stay because they're really interested in the subject, or they know what I'm doing, or whatever. But I saw that number. It's not a slow decline. It's not like we're losing a few. It's an abyss. It's an abyss. It just collapses. I saw that graph and I just said, oh, okay, I've got to re-teach myself. I have to start thinking about what I do in an entirely different way. I am not making TV shows. You thought you were, and you want to, but you're not. You're making internet videos. And internet videos, you have to get people in the first 3 seconds, or else they're not coming. And every time I would run the credits, they're gone. The faithful are here. That's nice, and it's very flattering and stuff. But if you want to talk about getting actual eyeballs on things, then you have to get them into it, and fast. I was here last night till about 11 o'clock at night doing the subtitles on the Facebook version. And I hate the subtitles because if you're listening to the show, first of all, it's a lot of work. It was 140 different slates that I had to put up. But if you're listening to the show and you're reading the subtitles, it's really distracting. However, I can't tell you how many times I would be either in bed or I'd be in public someplace, I'd be at a restaurant, or when I'm flipping through my Facebook feed and there's something interesting and I don't want to turn up the sound, I don't want everybody to hear it, and I'm just reading the subtitles, so it's essential. By the way, that thing is doing bang up business. We released it, I don't know, early this morning. As I write this is Wednesday. I'm just curious because the numbers really zoom in. We released it this morning at about 5 o'clock Pacific time. The latest firewall, whatever it's called, Black Lives Matter. And right now, as I speak, it is at 187,000 on Facebook. That's a very good number for not even being up there for 24 hours. It's 18 hours maybe tops. So that's a really good opening. And Al Conson there, I think that's who it is, said he skips opening sequences on YouTube. So do I. And it's a shame because now the graphics are so cool that they really can be just tremendous. And I see all these incredible Photoshop templates and I love them so much. But I had to change my product, and it hurt me a lot more than you may suspect it did to tear those front graphics off of the show. I mean, it really bothers me. It bothers me that even the right angle opening credits are 6 seconds, I want to say 6 or 7. Nope, gone. I keep them on YouTube for right angle because YouTube's got a fairly, things are changing so fast, but you're basically, you go to YouTube, right? I mean, you go there and you hit a button, but Facebook, you're just scrolling down your feed and it comes up and it starts auto playing, and it's like, if you're going to get that, because you're not going to it, it's coming to you, you got to get people fast, and you got to change. So that's one example. The opening graphics are one example, and it hurt badly to get rid of them. I really, really, really didn't want to do it, but I did. I'll tell you what else hurt me quite a bit, emotionally and artistically. Prior to this conversation that I told you about a couple months ago, when I sat down with people and had my eyes opened about the reality of what I create, because as I said, for the last 8-10 years, I thought I was making television, but I'm not. I'm making internet videos. So people weren't getting through the opening graphics, so the opening graphics disappeared. And then something else I realized, and that is got to do with how search engines work and how people find the work in the first place. And you may have noticed this lately, but all of the evocative titles that I liked so much, I loved these evocative titles. And people have been telling me for a while, it's like, well, especially at Afterburner, I remember all the time people say, can you just make the title what it's about? No, I want to call this, whatever. And these evocative titles, I loved them because I thought they were clever and I thought they were nice. But the problem is they're great along with opening credits if you have people sitting in front of the television with nothing else to watch. However, that's not the case. So not only do you have to get them fast, you also have to get them fast. And the way you do that is by making a very simple statement and an opening statement, so that the titles of my firewalls for the last 2 or 3 have changed. Guns, Islam, and Orlando were the 3 most they were the 3 most in-demand search words when I wrote the video, and so Guns, Islam, and Orlando was the title of it. Black Lives Matter. I could have just called it Black Lives Matter, but I'm not going to win any friends from Black Lives Matter, so I called it Black Lives Matter Kills People. So the people that are going to be watching this video are going to be people that don't like Black Lives Matter, and I'm going to give them some ammunition. So that is a change. So it sinks in slowly. To be honest with you, Zachariah, it sinks in slowly, but it does eventually get there. So to answer your question, as far as opening my membership up, and especially viewership up, it's been a big breakthrough for me to realize what I'm doing. It's been a breakthrough for me to hire the help that we need to do it, and when you get right down to it, the help you have to hire to do the additional content pretty much knocks out your original revenue. And that's another lesson that I've learned recently, because prior to this year, this was not a business. It wasn't really a business, honestly, not an actual genuine business, I don't think. until PGTV closed. And then something really changed, fundamentally changed here. We had to take on, we get 5 or 6 different part-time workers now, and doing other people's shows is a business. And it has to be treated like a business. So my problem is that I'm the product, and I'm also responsible for delivering the product, and I'm very picky about the way that final product looks. So it's taken months, 3 months, 2-3 months, to get somebody up to speed where I'm relatively confident in handing off the right angles. I went from having to spend 2 or 3 days of post-production on right angles to probably about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to get them all done, all 4. That's a big difference, and that gets me back into what I'm doing. But all of this stuff has to happen after, I don't want to call it spare time, but this Black Lives Matter firewall was 3 weeks late, 2 or 3 weeks late. It was just really behind, and it was behind because I had so much other stuff to do, and I didn't want to screw this one up, and I just had to wait till I had a handle on it. So yeah, there is so much more that I can do, and there's so many people out there who can help, and I expect I will be talking to them. But I'll close this particular subject with news that I'm sure will make you happy. It's not news anymore, but it used to be. About a year ago, maybe a little less than that, I remember saying on the show that when whoever's elected in January, I think I'm going to hang up my spurs, or at least go into the go into the reserves. Maybe do 1 a month or something like that. Get on with doing the movies. And I'd done 3 tours of 4 years each. I've been at this for 12 years. It's 3 tours. That's a lot. And I genuinely believed it, and I really felt that way. Now I begin to realize that one way or another, what we do here gets more and more important. And without question, if Hillary Clinton is elected, without question, then I'm going to be needed more than I was with Obama, if such a thing is possible. Because 8 years ago with Obama, from the day he was inaugurated, the actual day he won the election, I congratulated him, and I said in a post on public, the last post I did on eject, was the day after the election. I said, congratulations, Democrats. You won this one fair and square. I have a lot of questions about this guy, a lot of doubts about this guy, and I very much hope I'm wrong. But I wasn't, so I've spent 8 years now fighting Barack Obama, and the reason I think I'm going to have to be more active and not less active is because Hillary Clinton, if she gets the job, is starting from wreckage. He started with a country and took it to wreckage. She's starting from wreckage and wants to go in the same direction. So, yeah, we're not going anywhere. If Donald Trump wins this thing, on the other hand, we have a different problem. It's still a problem, but it's a different problem, and that problem is keeping him on message, keeping him, holding his feet to the fire, I guess. Needless to say, it's a whole different world if it's Donald Trump than it is if Hillary Clinton. But I'm not one of those people that feels like they're equally bad. I just don't know how you come to that conclusion. So if Donald Trump is elected, that'd be great, but it's not like Ronald Reagan being elected. We still have enormous amounts of problems. However, I think the level of solutions is an unknown. Okay, that's what it is. The reason I'm voting for Trump is because he's an unknown, and he may in fact be a catastrophe, but I know that she will be. I know that she will be. They say, you should always never wish for the death of the czar because the next czar may be worse. But in this particular case, I already know which one of these two people is going to be worse. I know which one's going to be worse by far. So it's a no-brainer for me. It is possible that Trump will just, Trump may, in fact, I've made the case before, he's not a conservative. Trump may govern as a big government liberal. Okay, that's a possibility. But even if he is a big government liberal, he's not Hillary Clinton. And it's not a personal reason, although I do personally despise the woman. I despise her personally because of the just the absolute ease with which she lies about everything, just everything, and she just puts the security of the entire nation, but specifically thousands of real people who are intelligence operatives, and these take a second place to her being able to, conduct this covert business of selling political influence for $100 million. This is just not somebody I just can't sit by and let that happen. I gotta stop her as much as I can. So look, either we do stop her and Donald Trump wins, in which case things will be much better, but then we have to figure out how do we package these ideas in a way that, I'm not trying to say I have control over Donald Trump's campaign, but I mean, we still have to sell things, right? We still have to make the sale. If Trump is elected, we go from offense to a different kind of thing. If Trump is elected, then my job's not just to attack Hillary. My job is to help provide the alternatives in a way that people can understand it, to give Donald Trump and that administration a chance to see what we're really talking about, because I don't think he gets it. I don't think he gets it mostly because no one's ever sold it to him. I mean, Donald Trump seems like a guy who, look, if I had a half an hour with Donald Trump and I went in prepared, and I get the feeling that I could sell him as a businessman on these ideas for the good of the country and for his own personal good. But no one's ever made the case. No one's ever done what I started the show talking about. No one's ever said, what is money? What is it? What is it? What is socialism? What is capitalism? How is wealth created? No one talks about this stuff. It's all about the economics. Because frankly, that's the only part of the government we really want to get out of the way. We want them to get out of our way, and so the economic growth can happen. And when the economic growth happens, then the military spending can go back up. We shouldn't be cutting back on spending, but we do in fact have some pretty decent hardware out there relative to the rest of the world. It's just that when the Obama administration intentionally pushes the warriors out of our warrior culture, because what Obama does is he doesn't sack generals or privates or sergeants. He simply makes life unlivable for them, and they resign. And I don't blame them. But when you hear people who are Green Beret commanders, saying, no, I'm leaving. They asked me to ask my people if they had guns in the house, and if so, how many and where were they? And I just will not do it. I refuse. So he's out. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do. So I'm not going anywhere. The really tough part will be finding a way to stay on the political stuff and get the movies done, because the movies are in fact not just fun and not just what I've been wanting to do my entire life. They are in fact far more effective political weapons than what I do now. And so if I can reach 15, 16-year-old boys and girls who don't even know they're being reached, then it's game over. So that'll be something to do. And I think I'm doing an interview with Stefan either tomorrow or the next day. We're going to do an hour on, what was it? I don't remember. Might be BLM. In any event. And the last question for the day from Ian A. Little. Are you Ian A. Little? I'm Ian A. Little. Ian A. Little says, you are approached by a very wealthy individual who loves your work and gives you $10 million with no strings attached out of sheer gratitude. What do you do with it? Well, I close down this shop, I turn off this camera, and I say, so long, suckers, out of all the little bastards, and I get in my new Stingray and drive my ass out of here. Actually, that's not what I would do. If somebody just dropped $10 million on my door, I would probably spend 5 to 10% of it. $500,000 to $1 million on toy. I'd get a Viper jet because it's what I do to relieve stress. I write about it a lot. It sharpens my skills, and I would get one for about $500,000 and buy a Viper jet. And then for the other $500,000, I would, improve my car and my living spaces somewhat. But I'm very happy I'm happy living my Camaro lifestyle. I'm happy with my apartment, and I'm happy with my long easy. It's not like I've lived to improve these things, but if somebody dropped $10 million on my door, that's what I would do with it. I'd spend $1 million on that, assuming it's $10 million after taxes. It's not a good assumption, but let's just assume it is. So that leaves $9. I would take 5 of the 9, and I would put it aside for retirement, I'd put it in a bunch of safe places, not just retirement, not just so I can retire. I would put it in places where I had some ability to bail out family and friends if things really went south. You know, I'd start to set up the financial substructure of something that could survive the kind of economic catastrophe that we may be looking at, because I think we're going to need little islands of stability and sanity and reason and kindness if we keep going down this road. So I would put half of it away. $5 million I'd put away. $1 million I'd spend on toys, and then I'd put $4 million into the business. I wouldn't put all of it into the business because, so much here gets made with other people's money. But the fact of the matter is, if I need $10 million on the business, and I put in 4 of my own, that should be enough money to raise the other 6 to get what I need for movies or whatever. I don't need that much for movies. I probably would buy myself Big Bad Problems. That's what I would do. I'm saying probably, but I would fund that movie because I think it's going to make some real profit. And it'll probably cost about $1 million to make and another $500 or $800 to promote. So I'd be $2 million into the hole for that movie. But if you make a good movie for $2 million, good horror movie, you can do really well. Blair Witch Project or Saw or what is it? I'm not even going to look because people will tell me. I have to get this. All right, I give up. The ghost thing. Something occurrences or the ghost thing that they made for $2 million and made $100 million or 120 or something like that. If you make something funny and action-packed and you keep all of the costs off the front and you put them all in the back, everybody works for the minimum and then you work for profit, and I think you make a real buck off of that, genuine money. So I suppose I'd do that. And then the rest of it I'd put into this political business. Paranormal activity. And I'm proud to say I got that before anybody else got it, although I'm going to see a rush of them in a second here. So yeah, that's what I would do, I think, with $10 million. I'd put some away. I'd buy $1 million worth of toys, mostly vehicles, because I like to drive things. I like to go fast and carefully. And then I'd put the rest into the business without any question whatsoever. I'd buy that movie without a second's hesitation. I'm going to ask other people to put the money in, and if I didn't believe in it, I couldn't be able to do that. So, yeah, it would give me the means to be out $2 million and be up anywhere from 4 or 5 if it really tanked. Tanked across the board. To next thing you know, you may have $100 million or more if you're smart about it. And then I take some of that money from the profits and I'd make the second one. So the first one's $1.5 million. Second one's probably $3-4 million, and then Aurora's probably 10 or 12. And I just keep using the money to own the whole thing, which is what they did with Saw. They put up the money for the first Saw, did super well. They took all of the money from the first Saw and they made a second one, and I want to say they made it that year. I want to say that that they understood that it was Halloween was the release date, and I think they did one every year for about 3 or 4 years, they made out like bandits, which is nice because resources are nice. I'll just close on this. Some people. I've known people that are motivated by money. I've known people that are, in the financial markets, and in fact, money is their product, and money is their passion, and it's not that they're fixated on making money so much as they just love the idea of finance. It's like a giant moving puzzle to them, and so those people are money based. But I don't know. I've known a few millionaires. I've known several people who are very successful. I've known quite a few millionaires actually, and every single one of them were people that started with next to nothing, and every single one of the millionaires that I know got to be millionaires not because they were chasing money. As a matter of fact, that was never in their top 3. They had a passion to do something that they loved, and they realized that if they could do it, it might make other people might be interested in it, might make the world a little better. whether it's making carbon 14 cheaper, carbon 14 dating cheaper, or whether it's, designing airplanes and then designing spaceships, whatever you want to do. The people I know that have done well for themselves, and guys like Branson, who I don't know, or Elon Musk, have done spectacularly well. Those people never went after the money. They had a passion to do something, and the money followed that passion, and that's how I feel definitely. I put it where I really believed it needed to go, and a lot of it would, I said, $3 or $4 million would go into this business, and hire some more editors, and I'd certainly hire some full-time marketing social media people, and that's why I keep asking for memberships, because we've gotten bigger, and the thing I've learned about business is, and it's actually kind of, on one level it's kind of disappointing and sad, and on the other level it's actually kind of beautiful, because, look, I know this is not news to virtually all of you. I came really late to this party, really late, but it never really occurred to me until PJTV went away that a business was something that a river of revenue rolls through, but that does not end up with you. I just kind of thought that it was a sort of a stream or a trickle that I could put up some little berms for, and create a little pocket of it, a little reservoir, a little pond maybe of money, and basically keep all of it, just let a little seep out. But the more of actual business I see, the more I realize that business is in fact the process of dipping tin cups into a river of revenue that comes in the door and goes right out the door again. And you get to dip a tin cup in for yourself to drink, and certainly we're not doing huge numbers in terms of revenues, but virtually every dollar that comes in goes right back out again, and so it's kind of an interesting wake-up call for me. And at first I thought, I was really kind of disappointed. Once they take because the government doesn't take a tin cup, the government takes 75 buckets of your stuff, and they haul that money away. But even when you look at what's left after taxation, I thought, well, hopefully I get to keep more of this. But no, it's coming in and it's going out. And then I thought, well, that's really disappointing. And at the same time, I realized, you know what? No, it's actually not disappointing at all. You're doing something you love doing. I find myself here editing until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, virtually every night of the week. And I'm here often on weekends. And sometimes I sit there and think, wow, I'm putting in a lot of hours. And then that little voice in the back of my head says, you're putting in a lot of hours doing important work that you love. This is a high-class problem, Bill. So what I realized was that even though whatever money comes in, virtually all of it goes right back out again, because certainly my personal finances are not increasing, and my standard of living is not rising, even though our revenues are up considerably. And that's because in order to make up the extra work that we got the extra revenue for, we have to spend the revenue. And this, as I say, I know I'm kind of dancing around this, but this was the real revelation for me, which started out as a negative revelation, like, Jesus, all this money's coming in and it's all going out again. That's horrible. And then I realized all this money's coming in and it's all going out again. That's wonderful, because we're paying people, and we're paying good people. It's an absolute genuine pleasure to write a paycheck to Steve Green and Scott Ott. It's a minuscule paycheck, but it's a paycheck. And it's great. And I did several years ago when I started BillWhittle.com. Even then I realized that it is an amazing feeling if you've never had it. If you've never had this experience, believe me, it's astonishing to sign the front of a paycheck. To write paychecks for people is an amazing experience, especially when you're small enough so that you know them very, very well, and they're friends and they're good people. They're like family. It's a tremendous feeling writing a paycheck for people, and at the same time, it's a whole new level of responsibility. It's like, do I really want to do this extra work? Not really. But on the other hand, the people depending on me now. There are people who are depending on me. I'm their paycheck, and I'm the product, so I got to do a little more dancing. I got to dance a little bit faster, and I have to keep, hustling for memberships because I think it's important work, and I can't do it for nothing. I just can't. It just can't be done. This office disappears, and so does everything else. So we're doing a lot better. We certainly hired better people in the last year, and the other thing I didn't realize, obviously, is I did not realize just how much of a full-time job it is for well, we have Carla, obviously, is doing a great job as operations manager, but other people, accountants and bookkeeping people, the amount of work that has to happen that has nothing to do with your product at all, the amount of hours that have to be spent and paid for things that do nothing to improve the membership experience, to improve the content. All it is complying with these regulations and laws, and every single day I get handed another piece of paper that says I have to write a check for the, what is it today? It's a county tax on my electronics here. What? Or city tax? Yes. What? You're telling me? Yes, that's right. The Macintosh that you bought and the big monitor that you bought, you didn't buy those. They're not yours. You're renting them from the government. You have to continue to pay taxes on these things until you die, because if you don't, they'll take them away. So, it's a living. It's a great living. I just am doing what I should be doing. And I learned very late in life, maybe 2-3 years ago, that the Greeks or the Romans, or both of them, said that the definition of real happiness is using all of your powers to maximum advantage. I can certainly relate to that. So there's that. And there's some other interesting news out there that I will share the next month or so. Until then, I think that'll probably wrap us up here. So not too bad. A little, an hour and 45, somewhere in there. Yeah. That ought to hold, little bastards. Yes, so if you can help us, and if you've been watching the show and you hear me say this all the time, the reason I say it all the time is because it's a product, and if you're watching it for free, then, that's not the capitalist system that we all know and love. If you can help pay for this stuff that you're consuming, we really could use the help, and we certainly are going to put that money to good use, and we're not burning it on, not lighting it on fire out in the parking lot. We're all working very hard, and we have as few people as we can here, and we're just trying to make this go as far as we can. So we need to stop these people, and videos like the Black Lives Matter video is the kind of thing that no one else is doing. It's just telling the truth fearlessly, and I can do that fearlessly because I work for, thousands of people. I work for you guys. You're my boss, and I don't have to worry about you. I don't have to worry about, I do worry about you. I worry about you all the time. I worry about making sure that you're happy and that you're satisfied with the money that we're taking, because it's actual money, and I take that very seriously. When I say I don't worry about you, what I mean is I believe that my members are going to stay as members so long as I do what I'm trying to do, and as long as I continue to put out the product that I put out. And that product, I think, is the truth. The more I think about it, the more I realize it. I think it's just the truth. I think it's just telling the truth as it appears to me and appears to you. And the reason I believe these things is because they appear to be true, and there seems to be a fair amount of evidence for it. So since the entire purpose of the mainstream media now is to destroy every last remnant of belief in this country, and belief in the market, and belief in the military, and belief in the police force, and belief in everything that makes this world work, is under attack, and it's under attack everywhere. So I think the thing I do is I just tell truth as I see it, and hopefully the purpose, or rather the outcome of this, is that people like you understand that you're not alone and you're not crazy. It's nice to hear somebody say things that you know to be true, and say it in a way that they're confident about. I met a couple years in a row, I've done an event out in Redlands, and I met a father, Josiah Trenum, I want to say his last name is. He's an Eastern Orthodox priest, and he was at an event, and I've done Um, I've done hundreds of speaking events, hundreds, and very, 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 very rarely do I see anybody who's really any good at this. Um, Lots and lots of politicians just go up and talk, and then other times we see other people who are great on the radio or whatever, and they're just not very good in front of an audience. But Father Josiah was astonishing. And the thing that impressed me, well, first of all, he's 6'6" or 6'7" or something, a young guy with a beard. He's got 10 kids. And I saw him in Redlands, which is part of San Bernardino. And this was probably about 4 or 5 days after the shooting. It was right there. So he got up there right after this massacre and started saying what he would have done if it had been members of his congregation, because he knows professionally the imam who the San Diego murderers, whose church they belong to, whose mosque they belong to. And he basically got up there and said, if it had been me, this is what I would have done. If these people had been Christians from my church who'd gone out and murdered all these people, here's what I would have done. And what you got out of that was a guy who talked about Christianity as if he wasn't ashamed of it. And it's really a remarkable thing. It really is. It's remarkable to hear somebody talk about Christianity in public in a room full of people as if he really believed in it, and as if he really loved it, and as if he really cared. He wasn't ashamed, and he wasn't hedging his bets, and he wasn't tiptoeing around issues, and he wasn't doing everything he could to make sure he didn't hurt anybody's feelings. He had a muscular belief in his religion, and it rubbed off on everybody who listened to him. And this is what Muslims have in the worst cases is a negative image, but they have beliefs and they believe in their beliefs. And guys like Josiah Trenum are just they make you believe. I mean, they make you believe in what they're saying because they have such a deep belief in it themselves, and it's so obvious. It's so obvious that this is a passionate, sincere, thought-out, reasoned belief. And, he's not trying to sell it, and that's why it sells. Anyway, that's that. If you can go over and click the member button, we'd really could use the help. I say that every day, and I need to keep saying it because, frankly, if I was selling Ajax or Formula 409 or shoes or a car, it'd be much easier for me because then I wouldn't have to talk about myself. But I'm the product, and we'd like to keep the product coming, so that's going to depend on people actually signing up instead of just thinking about it or saying maybe next time or whatever. It means doing it now if you can, and if you can't, I understand. But if you can and you don't, I don't understand. I'm just doing the work that needs to be done, and it is in fact a product. And these videos have the same market forces applied to them that everything else does. They've got to be paid for, they've got to be advertised, they've got to be marketed, they have to be distributed, all of this stuff, and it costs money. And if we had more money, we could do more. So if you've been enjoying these for a while and haven't been paying for them, if you could start becoming a member, we need the help. That's the end of the guilt trip for today. And if you're one of those people, and most of the people watching this are members, things like the Black Lives Matter firewall are dedicated specifically to you. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this newsletter I'm about to write. They are dedicated to the members of BillWhittle.com. It doesn't say that on there, but you can get it from every right angle we talk about. Scott and Steve and I always thank the members. We thank them because it genuinely is the truth. None of this would be possible without your vision and without your generosity and support. And God knows we've had a rocky path here and there over the past several years with this BillWhittle.com thing, but as I said, since PJTV left, I've been very, very, very pleased and proud of the volume that gets turned out of an office that consists of 2 full-time employees, one of which doesn't have anything to do with the product at all. It's been great, and it's going to get greater. So I think that'll do it for number 128. My gosh, my gosh, my gosh. Time flies when you're unconscious. This is my Safe Space Sabo designed T-shirt. That's little me down there. It will be available for sale. We are getting a complete website redesign. It's in the works, so the website we've got now is kind of the Mark II website. The other website we had for 3 years, and this was interim. Put this in let's say February, March. But the new one is completely redesigned, and we're going to completely different back-end suppliers on things, none of which really is going to matter to much of you, but the reason the store's not up and running yet is because we're different merchant bankers and different people with the credit card companies, and it's much, much, much better. And by the way, that's the last thing I'll say about the membership thing. This is so embarrassing. I will certainly do a little promotional video about this. So here's a closing thought for the night. It's got to do with our new website. I was at an event down in San Diego. What is that place called? It's a really weird sort of, it's like its own little world. It's a little convention center. And that's where they had the parking for Comic-Con. But I was at this room, and it's kind of frozen in time. It feels like 1966 back there. But it's an interesting room. And we had internet connection, and I never talk about my business, and I never ask people to sign up when I'm speaking, which is a mistake. But we basically had a room full of people, and I said, if you'd like to become a member, we can sign you up right in the back on an iPad. So somebody came back, and I was there with Carla. Carla hadn't been with me very long at the time. We were on the internet. And we said, we had a little iPad there, and we said, well, thank you very much. And we went to the BillWhittle.com sign-up page, and I'm telling you, it took 25 minutes to sign up. And I had never been so mortified or embarrassed in my life. I mean, it was horrific. It was horrific. And after the first 5 or 6 problems, I was just so embarrassed. And after the 7th or 8th problem, I just said, how much business have I lost because of this? So the good news is that the way the new website is going to be set up is going to be the simplest thing in the world. Your email address, bam, and you're in. That's the kind of stuff that I haven't had a chance to get to until just now. Paramedic Tall Guy wants a forum. I've heard many requests for the forum. It's on our list, but we got to get the store open first, and the whole site is just the architecture is completely different. So that's being developed now, and it's going to make the switch probably in the next couple of days or weeks, and RSS feed, all of this stuff. And by the way, when we get the new website up, we'll do a show just on the new website, because we will make notes on what is working and what's not working. But what is working is me, and I got some working to do. I've got to get a couple of newsletters out tonight. So that'll do it for number 128. And again, it's always great to see you. And a special congratulations to Mike Amadin and Maximilian and his lovely wife. Here's just one more for you in case if you came late to the party. We have this brand new arrival in the world, and by all accounts, this little fella is going to be one of those people that's going to be fighting for truth, justice, and the American way. And God knows we could use as many of those as we possibly can. So congratulations, Max, on the new arrival, and hopefully we rang you into planet Earth with a little pizzazz. You certainly deserve it, and so does your family. So until next week, or next time, hopefully next week, I expect it'll be next week, I am going to wrap this thing up, and I will see you guys when I see you. And we're out of here in 3, 2, 1.